No one on that morning flight expected anything unusual. The sky looked calm, the air smooth, and the old transport aircraft hummed like it always did. She sat in the left seat, hands light on the controls, checking instruments the way she had done 100 times before. She was a cargo pilot, nothing glamorous, nothing dramatic. Just long hours, heavy loads, and quiet skies. That was her life. And she liked it this way, but something inside her felt different today. Maybe it was the silence of the early morning, or the way the clouds seemed to hang lower than usual. Maybe it was the strange message she received on the ground before. Takeoff, only 2 words from an unknown number. Stay alert. She ignored it, thinking it was a mistake. She had no enemies, no secret life, nothing worth worrying about. She had no idea that within the next hour, the world would hear her call sign again, one that had been silent for years. The aircraft climbed to cruising altitude. Everything looked routine. The co-pilot beside her, an older man with calm eyes, sipped his coffee as if this was just another boring day at work. He chatted lightly about the weather, about maintenance checks, about how quiet the airspace seemed. She nodded, though something still tugged at her mind. Half an hour passed before the first sign appeared. A faint vibration under her feet. Not enough to scare anyone, but enough for her to feel it. Something was off. She leaned forward, checking. The engine gauges again. Are you feeling that? She asked quietly. The co-pilot frowned. Probably just turbulence. These clouds are thicker than they look. She didn't argue, but she didn't relax either. She knew aircraft. She knew vibrations. And this wasn't turbulence. Minutes later, a small alarm blinked on the panel. Not loud, not dramatic, just a soft amber light. But that light meant something was failing on the right engine. Her heartbeat picked up. Okay. This is strange, she whispered. She ran diagnostics, hoping it was a sensor glitch. It wasn't. The readings were real. Control to Flight 07, do you copy? The radio crackled suddenly. She grabbed the mic. Flight 07, reading you. We show a minor irregularity in your engine output. Are you confirming? Yes. She answered. We're seeing it too. Do you require assistance? She hesitated. Cargo pilots didn't call for help unless things were truly bad. But she didn't like how quickly the numbers were dropping. We'll monitor. She sighed, not requesting assistance yet. The co-pilot nodded, though she sensed worry in his eyes now. But then everything changed in a single second. A loud bang shook the aircraft. The right engine coughed, sputtered, and lost almost all power. Warning alarms lit up across the cockpit, painting everything red. Passengers weren't on board, only cargo, but the danger was the same. A heavy aircraft with one dying engine was not something anyone could ignore. The co-pilot's voice cracked. We're losing thrust. Her hands tightened around the controls. She stayed focused, calm, not because she wasn't afraid, but because she didn't have time to be. Control, this is Flight 07, she said sharply into the mic. We have an engine failure. Repeat, engine failure. The radio crackled with noise. She didn't wait. She switched frequencies to the emergency channel. Her voice stayed steady, but the weight behind it was unmistakable. Mayday, Mayday. Mayday. Cargo Flight 07 declaring emergency. The co-pilot reached for the fire suppression system, trying to stabilize the engine. The whole aircraft rattled. Then something happened that made both of them freeze when she transmitted her call. Sign, she didn't use the standard cargo designation. In panic and instinct, she used an old 11 she had once carried in a completely different life. A call sign that had not been heard for years. A call sign that belonged to a pilot who once flew something far faster, far more dangerous, and someone out there heard it. Within seconds, the emergency frequency filled with a sharp new voice, calm, clipped, unmistakably military. Repeat your call sign. The voice ordered. She swallowed hard. The co-pilot stared at her. He knew the story, of course. Everyone who had worked with her long enough had heard fragments of her past, but she never talked about it. She pressed the mic. "This is Falcon 7. Silence. Then another voice cut in, colder, more urgent. "Falcon 7, this is Eagle Command. We have your signal. 2 F-22s are already in the air." Her breath caught. The co-pilot whispered, "They're responding to you." "Not the aircraft, you." She didn't answer. Her chest tightened with memories she had buried so deeply she thought they were gone forever. But hearing her old call sign over the radio made everything return. Training days, missions she never spoke about, the reason she left that world behind. But now the sky around her was no longer quiet. Somewhere, cutting through the clouds at unbelievable speed, 2 fighter jets were coming straight to her location. And they weren't coming for the cargo plane. They were coming for Falcon 7. She stared out the window, the damaged engine shaking, alarms still screaming, and whispered to herself, "Why now? After all these years, why respond to me?" The alarms kept flashing, but her mind was no longer on the noise. She could still hear those words echoing in her headset. "Falcon 7, this is Eagle Command. 2 F-22s are already airborne." Her hands tightened on the control yoke. She felt her heartbeat in her throat. She had spent years trying to live a normal aviation life, quiet flights, cargo runs, no attention, no questions. But the moment she said that old call sign, everything she had left behind came crashing back. The co-pilot looked at her with a mix of fear and disbelief. "I knew you had a past in the military," he whispered, "but I didn't know it was this big." She didn't respond. She kept her eyes on the horizon, trying to steady the aircraft as it dipped slightly from the failing engine. She forced calm into her voice. "Let's focus. We need to keep altitude until help arrives." But even as she said it, she didn't fully understand why help was coming at all. She was retired, invisible, forgotten. She hadn't used her call sign in so long, she assumed. The system had wiped her out of every registry, yet someone remembered. Someone still had her coded identity active, and someone had scrambled fighter jets the second they heard her voice. The clouds outside shifted, thick and rolling over the wing. The damaged engine coughed again, the vibration growing stronger, altitude dropping. The co-pilot warned. "I see it," she said, making small corrections. Her voice stayed steady, but her thoughts were not. What if the engine fire spread? What if the aircraft became too heavy to hold? What if the F-22s didn't reach in time? She pushed the worries down. Thinking like that never saved anyone. Minutes passed like hours. The radio crackled again. "Falcon 7, this is Eagle Command. F-22s will reach you in 4 minutes. 4 minutes felt like a lifetime when you were fighting gravity. She answered with a short, clipped tone that came from her old training. "Copy." The co-pilot turned to her again, his expression softening. "You left that world for a reason, didn't you?" She kept flying, eyes forward. "Yes." "Are you okay with them coming back into your life now?" She gave a small, humorless smile. "They don't care about my life. They care about the call sign." He didn't argue. He knew she was right. For a moment, everything became quiet. No alarms, no shaking, just the steady hum of the remaining engine. A thin beam of sunlight broke through the clouds, lighting up the cockpit like a small blessing. Then something flashed outside the window. A streak of silver cut through the sky, sharper and faster than anything a cargo pilot usually saw. The co-pilot leaned forward. "Is that?" Before he finished, a voice filled the cockpit. "Falcon 7, this is Raptor 1. We have visual." Her breath caught. They were here. She looked out from the side window as the F-22 slid into formation beside her aircraft, sleek, silent, powerful. The jet flew so close she could almost see the pilot's eyes through the tinted canopy. Another jet appeared on the opposite side, moving with perfect precision. They weren't just here for escort. They were here for her. Falcon 7. Raptor 1 said, "Eagle Command ordered us to stay with you until you are safe. What's your status?" She glanced at the failing engine, the burning light still glowing red. Right engine failed. Aircraft heavy. Losing altitude slowly but still under control. Understood. Maintain heading. We're guiding you. The confidence in the fighter pilot's voice steadied her, but also triggered a storm in her memories mission she had. Flown long ago, secret operations she was never allowed to speak about. The one decision that made her walk away from that life forever. She thought she buried that part of herself, but hearing Falcon 7 brought all the dust back to the surface. As the F-22S flew beside her, protecting her like she was someone important, she felt a strange mix of pride and regret. The co-pilot studied her quietly. "You know, they talk about you." She blinked. "What?" "I once heard two officers arguing about whether you were real or just a story." She shook her head slowly. "That part of my life ended." "Maybe not," he said softly. "Maybe it was just sleeping." She didn't respond. She couldn't. Not now, not with alarms still blinking and fighter jets escorting her like she was still part of their world. Falcon 7. Raptor 1 said again, "Your descent path is unstable. We'll help correct it. Adjust pitch by 2 degrees and reduce speed slightly." She followed the instructions automatically. The jets repositioned around her, creating a protective shield in the sky. For a moment, the fear faded. Not because the danger was gone, but because she wasn't alone anymore.
Still, the question ate at her. Why did they show up so fast? Why was her call sign still active? And who exactly had ordered fighter jets to respond to a retired pilot? Her past wasn't just knocking. It was breaking the door open. And as the aircraft dropped another 100 feet, she realized something. This emergency, this engine failure, this timing, none of it felt like an accident anymore. As the clouds thinned and land appeared far below, she whispered under her breath, "Someone knew I'd be here today." The ground slowly appeared through the thin clouds, patches of fields, a river bending like a silver ribbon, and far in the distance, faint shapes of a military base she had sworn never to see again. The sight alone made her chest tighten. She kept her hands steady on the controls, even as the aircraft trembled from the uneven thrust. The F-22s stayed glued to her sides, moving like shadows that refused to leave her. Falcon 7. Raptor 1 called again. "You're drifting off your line. Adjust heading 10 degrees left." She did it without arguing. Her co-pilot watched her with a strange expression, half worry, half curiosity. "You're flying like you're one of them," he murmured. She didn't answer. The truth was simple. This was the first time in years she felt that old instinct waking up. That part of her mind that calculated distances in heartbeats, that found stability in chaos, that reacted before thinking. She had tried so hard to silence that version of herself. But today, she needed it. A dull thud shook the fuselage. The co-pilot flinched. What was that? She checked her indicators. Another system had gone yellow. "Hydraulics are dropping," she said quietly. He stared at her. "Both the engine and the hydraulics? In one flight?" She didn't reply. She didn't need to. They both knew this wasn't a normal mechanical failure anymore. Something was wrong, very wrong. "Falcon 7, Raptor 2 said, voice lower than before. "Eagle Command wants to know if you can attempt an immediate landing." She took a slow breath. "Negative. Aircraft too heavy. Too unstable." "Copy. We'll guide you until you reach safer airspace." She nodded, even though they couldn't see her. But underneath her calm voice, another thought grew louder. Why did this happen on the exact day someone sent her that strange message? "Stay alert." Her eyes drifted to the failing engine, then to the horizon. "I think someone wanted this plane to go down," she whispered. The co-pilot froze. You really think this was planned?" "I don't know," she answered. "But the timing is too perfect." He swallowed. "Someone targeting the cargo?" "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe targeting the pilot." The cockpit fell silent. A soft wind pushed against the aircraft and she corrected again. Small movements, barely noticeable but necessary to keep control. Her muscles felt tight, like she was holding the entire plane together with her own strength. Then the radio crackled again, but this time it wasn't the fighter jets. It was a calm, older voice, one she hadn't heard in almost a decade. "Falcon 7? Do you copy?" Her entire body went still. The co-pilot looked at her. "Who is that?" She didn't answer. Her throat felt tight. The voice came again, slower this time. "Falcon 7, this is Command Watch. If you hear me, respond." She finally picked up the mic. "Copy." The silence afterward felt heavier than the failing engine. "Falcon 7, the voice said. "I never thought I'd hear your call sign again." Her fingers trembled slightly. She forced them to stay still. "I didn't expect mine to be active," she said. "Why did your system respond?" "You know why." "No," she whispered. "I don't." The voice sighed softly, like someone carrying years of secrets. "Your clearance was never removed. Your status was never erased. You were never forgotten. And when your call sign hit the emergency line, every alert went red." She felt the world tilt. Not the aircraft, but her heart. "I left," she said quietly. "I walked away. And we respected that," the voice replied. "But your record stayed classified, not deleted. Because if anyone ever tried to find you, we would know." She felt cold. "Find me?" she repeated. "Who would try to find me?" But the voice avoided the question. "Falcon 7, focus on flying. You're not safe yet." The line went silent, but the tension it left behind filled the cockpit like thick fog. Her co-pilot whispered, "You're telling me someone from your past might be behind this?" "I don't know," she said, voice low. "But someone knew my route. Someone knew my shift. Someone knew I'd be flying this exact aircraft." He stared forward, shaken. "What do we do now?" She steadied the controls as the plane dipped again. "We survive first. Then we get answers." The F-22s tightened their formation around the cargo plane, flying slightly ahead now, clearing the airspace like shields. "Falcon 7, Raptor 1 said. "Your left wing is losing lift. You need to reduce altitude slowly or you'll stall." She nodded and began the gradual descent. Each meter felt like a negotiation with gravity. One mistake and the aircraft would roll. As they dropped through another cloud layer, she could finally see the runway in the far distance. Long, dark, waiting. Her breath shook. "Runway in sight," she said quietly. Raptor 1 replied instantly, "We're with you until your wheels touch the ground." Her hands tightened one more time around the controls. This wasn't just an emergency landing. This was stepping back into a world she had run from. This was a warning. This was a message. As the runway grew closer, she whispered to herself, "Someone didn't want me to walk away, after all." The runway stretched out ahead like a thin lifeline carved into the earth. She guided the aircraft lower, feeling every vibration through the controls. The right engine was almost silent now, more dead than alive. The hydraulics warning blinked non-stop, like a heartbeat counting down time she didn't have. But she kept flying. The F-22s held formation, one slightly above her, one below, their wings angled like shields. They weren't just escorting her anymore. They were guarding her, protecting her, watching for something unseen in the sky. "Falcon 7, Raptor 1 said. "You're high on your glide path. Bring it down slowly." "Copy," she answered. The co-pilot wiped sweat from his forehead. "I've flown with you for 2 years," he whispered. "But I've never seen you this serious." She didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed locked on the runway. "I've landed damaged aircraft before," she said softly. "But I've never landed one while the past chased me." He didn't know what to say to that. The aircraft descended another 100 feet. Air rushed faster along the windows. The controls grew heavier, as if the plane was fighting her with every kilometer. "Altitude unstable," Raptor 2 warned. "Your left wing is dragging." "I feel it," she said. She adjusted gently, trying to keep the nose aligned. Her breath stayed controlled, steady in, steady out. But inside, her mind was anything but steady. Why had someone from Command Watch spoken to her? Why did the system respond to a call sign she hadn't used in years? And why did this aircraft fail today of all days? The words "stay alert" from the unknown text repeated in her head. As they approached the final stretch, the base below came into clear view. Hangars, towers, runways, ground crew running out with emergency trucks already lined up. The co-pilot frowned. Why are they treating this like a classified landing? This is a cargo plane. She didn't answer, because she knew. They weren't waiting for the aircraft. They were waiting for Falcon 7. At 60 feet, another gust of wind pushed the plane sideways. The aircraft wobbled hard. The co-pilot braced. Falcon 7. Correct left. Raptor 1 shouted. She reacted instantly, nudging the controls just enough to stabilize the descent. The plane aligned again. The runway lights flickered under the nose. She lowered the landing gear. The loud clunk sounded like a final decision. No going back now. At 30 feet, the damaged engine made one last cough. Then it died completely. The aircraft dropped faster. Hold it, the co-pilot urged. I am, she whispered. She flared the nose at the exact second needed, and the wheels slammed onto the runway harder than she liked, but hard enough to stay alive. Screech. The tires screamed as the aircraft skidded slightly before straightening. Emergency crews chased alongside. The F-22s peeled off and circled above like hawks protecting something precious. The aircraft slowed, and finally rolled to a stop. Her hands fell from the controls. For a moment, she didn't speak, didn't breathe, didn't move. The co-pilot let out a shaky laugh. We're alive. We actually made it. But she could not celebrate, because even though they survived the landing, something inside her whispered that the real danger hadn't even started yet. The radio clicked again. Falcon 7, a calm voice said. This is base control. Cut your engines and remain seated. Ground command is approaching. Approaching? For a damaged cargo plane? She felt unease crawl up her spine. Within minutes, a black vehicle pulled up beside the aircraft. Not a rescue truck. Not engineers. A security transport. The co-pilot looked at her. It feels like they're coming for you. She didn't deny it. A group of officers stepped out, walking toward the plane with urgency. Not fear, but purpose. She recognized the emblem on their jackets. Something she had hoped never to see again. Classified Division. The same group she once worked under. Her breath caught. The lead officer signaled for the ladder to be brought up. A crew rushed it to the side door. When it opened, cold air rushed inside the cockpit. Stay here, she told the co-pilot. Are you sure? She nodded. This is something I need to face. She stepped out slowly, her boots landing on the metal steps, her heartbeat echoing louder than the alarms earlier. The lead officer removed his cap as she approached. Falcon 7, he greeted. Not her real name, her old identity. She stood straight, steady, even though her stomach tightened with old memories. You weren't supposed to find me, she said quietly. He studied her with unreadable eyes. You made it very difficult. But when you said your call sign, the system alerted every department linked to your former program. I left that world, she replied. I left for a reason. We know. And we respected your silence. He paused. But someone else didn't. Her blood ran cold. What do you mean? The officer stepped closer, lowering his voice. Your emergency today wasn't random. Someone triggered the engine failure from outside the aircraft. Someone interfered with your flight path. Her breath froze. And whoever did it, the officer continued, was not targeting the cargo. He looked her straight in the eyes. They were targeting you. Her world tilted again. But why? She whispered. The officer shook his head. That's what we need to find out. And Falcon 7. He glanced at the damaged plane behind her. This was only the warning. The officer's words echoed in her mind long after he spoke them. This was only the warning. She felt the weight of those words settle on her shoulders. She had survived a failing engine, a failing hydraulic system, and a landing that could have ended everything. But now she realized the danger wasn't the aircraft. The danger was unseen, unknown, watching. "Come with us," the officer said, gesturing toward the vehicle. "We need to debrief you immediately." She glanced back at the plane. The co-pilot stood in the doorway, worry written all over his face. "Go," he mouthed. She nodded once, then followed the officer. Inside the vehicle, the air felt colder than outside. The windows were tinted so dark she couldn't see the runway anymore. A second officer sat opposite her, a tablet glowing in his hands. The first officer spoke gently, almost cautiously. "We traced the engine malfunction to an external interference. Something or someone triggered it remotely." Her pulse quickened. "That's not possible. Cargo planes aren't linked into any remote system." "Exactly," the officer said, "which is why this is serious." The second officer turned the tablet toward her. "Before takeoff, a signal pinged your aircraft's maintenance port. It injected a small code, a very specific code." She leaned in. The screen displayed lines of data she hadn't seen in years, not since her old life. She knew those numbers. She knew that pattern. Her stomach dropped. "This code," she whispered, "belongs to our old program." The first officer nodded. "We thought you would recognize it." She leaned back slowly, shock tightening every muscle in her chest. She had tried to bury that part of her past, the missions, the classified flights, the mistakes that haunted her. She walked away because she couldn't carry it anymore. But the past hadn't walked away from her. It had found her again. "Who has access to this code?" she asked. "That's the problem," the officer said. "Only 6 people ever had access. 2 retired completely. 2 passed away years ago. 1 is under constant supervision." She waited. "And the last one?" she asked. They exchanged a look. The first officer said quietly, "The last one disappeared. Years ago. Before you left." Her breath caught. Disappeared. Not dead. Not retired. Gone. And now maybe back. "Why target me?" she asked, voice low. The officer sighed. "We were hoping you could tell us." She swallowed hard. Her old program was filled with things no one talked about. Missions never written on any official record. Choices that changed lives forever. She had walked away because one mission had been too much for her. But she never thought anyone from that time would chase her this far into civilian life. "I don't know," she said softly. "But if he's really out there, he isn't doing this for nothing." The vehicle stopped suddenly. When the doors opened, she expected an interrogation room, maybe a briefing hall. But instead, they led her outside. And there, parked in a separate hangar away from the busy base, stood a familiar aircraft. Not a cargo plane. A sleek, dark, sharp-winged jet with markings she instantly recognized but had prayed never to see again. Her old aircraft. The one tied to her final mission. The one that carried her call sign long before she ever touched a cargo plane. Her voice shook. Why bring this back?" The officer stepped beside her. "We didn't. It arrived last night." She stared at him, stunned. "What?" "This jet was found flying with no filed plan and no pilot. It landed itself, autonomously. And then," he pointed at the tail. Her call sign was painted there. Falcon 7. Fresh paint. New. Rewritten. As if someone wanted her to see it. "That's impossible," she whispered. "This jet was destroyed years ago. I saw the wreckage myself." The officer exhaled. "Then someone rebuilt it. Or someone used the wreckage to send a message." A cold shiver ran across her back. She stepped closer to the jet's nose. The metal was cold to the touch, almost like a sleeping animal waiting for her hand. And on the canopy, finger drawn through dust, someone had written, "You left without finishing the story." Her throat tightened. This wasn't just a threat. This wasn't random sabotage. This was personal. The officer placed a hand on her arm. "Falcon 7. Someone wants you back in the sky. Not as a cargo pilot. As who you used to be." She shook her head. "I can't go back. That part of me is done." That part of you, he said quietly, may be the only chance we have. Before she could reply, a loud alarm echoed across the hangar. A message appeared on the officer's tablet. He read it. His face changed. "What is it?" she asked. He looked up at her with eyes suddenly filled with urgency. "The signal we traced, the same one that caused your engine to fail, it just activated again." "Where?" she whispered. "Here," the officer said. "Inside this base." Her heart stopped. Someone had followed her. Someone was already inside. Someone who wasn't done sending warnings. The alarm echoed through the hangar like a warning bell from some old memory she had tried to forget. Officers rushed in every direction, radios crackling, boots pounding the floor. The once silent space turned into a storm of movement and fear. But she stood still, frozen, because the officer's last words wouldn't stop echoing in her mind. "The signal is coming from inside this base. Someone who knew her. Someone who knew the code. Someone who knew her call sign. Someone who had followed her here." The officer grabbed her arm gently but firmly. "We need to move you to a secure location. Now." She shook her head. "No. If someone planned this, then I'm the reason they're here. Running won't help." "It will if you're the target," he said. She didn't argue, but she didn't move either. Her eyes drifted back to the jet. The aircraft that should not exist. The aircraft she once flew on missions that were erased from official history. Why bring it back? Why now? The second officer rushed toward them, holding the tablet with shaking hands. "We found something." "What?" the first officer asked. He tapped the screen. The signal matching the engine hack. It just sent out a new command. Her stomach tightened. A new command to what? The officer hesitated. The jet. She spun toward the aircraft. "What did it tell the jet to do?" she asked, her voice tightening like a wire. The officer swallowed. "To wake up." A loud mechanical click came from the jet's underside. A small panel opened, releasing a stream of cold air. Lights inside the cockpit flickered to life. She took a step backward. "No," she whispered. This plane shouldn't be able to start on its own. But it was starting. The cockpit lights glowed brighter. The engine vents opened slightly. The jet looked like it was breathing again. The officer grabbed his radio. "Shut down power to Hangar B. Now." Another voice crackled through the speaker. "We already did. The jet is running on internal power. We can't stop it." Her heartbeat thundered. Someone had rebuilt this aircraft so it could function without ground assistance. Someone had planned every detail carefully. Someone wanted her to face this plane today. She stepped closer to the nose of the jet, ignoring the officer calling her name behind her. As she approached, the canopy glass lit up. A message appeared on the inside screen. 3 short words. "You remember now?" Her breath shook. The hangar felt suddenly quiet, even with alarms still buzzing in the distance. A strange calm settled over her, like the moment before a storm breaks. She placed her hand on the jet's cold metal again. She didn't want to remember, but she did. She remembered the mission, the last one, the reason she left. A mission that went wrong. Partner who vanished. A truth she couldn't live with. Her vision blurred for a moment. Memories rising like ghosts she thought she buried. The officer stepped beside her. "What are you remembering?" She didn't speak. The second officer suddenly tapped his earpiece, eyes widening. "Sir, cameras in the northern corridor just went offline." The first officer stiffened. "Someone's moving inside the restricted area." Then the second officer added, voice trembling, "And they're moving toward this hangar." A cold wave rushed through her. She turned to the officer. "They're not coming for you. They're coming for me." The officer shook his head. "We're not letting anyone get near you." She stepped away from him. "You don't understand," she whispered. "If this person is who I think, you can't stop them." The hangar lights flickered sharply once, twice, then returned. A shadow appeared at the far end of the doorway. A tall figure, still, waiting. The officers instantly raised their weapons and formed a half-circle around her. "Identify yourself," the lead officer shouted. The figure didn't move, didn't speak, didn't run, just stood there. The air grew tight and heavy. She felt something familiar, an energy she hadn't felt since the day she left her old life behind. The officer leaned close to her ear. "Do you know who that is?" Her voice came out shaky but certain. "Yes." "Who?" She swallowed hard. "The only person who knew my call sign better than I did." The figure took one slow step forward. The hangar lights reflected just enough to show a glimpse of a face she had not seen in so many years that her chest physically ached. Her voice cracked. "I thought you were dead." The figure finally spoke, voice low, steady, almost disappointed. "Falcon 7, you should know by now. I don't die that easily." Every officer froze. She froze. The jet behind her hummed like it recognized the voice too. And in that suspended moment, she understood one terrifying truth. He wasn't here to kill her. He wasn't here to threaten her. He wasn't even here because of the plane. He was here because of something bigger, something unfinished. Something only she could face. The hangar fell silent. All the alarms, all the shouting, all the noise from moments before. Everything faded when the figure stepped fully into the light. She stared at him as if her mind couldn't believe what her eyes were seeing. The officer beside her whispered, "Is that really him?" She nodded slowly, her voice barely a breath. "Yes, it's him." The officers kept their weapons raised, but the man didn't respond. He looked only at her, his expression calm. Too calm for someone who had caused chaos across the entire base. "Why?" she whispered. "Why now? Why come back?" He took another step forward, and the officers blocked him instantly. He raised his hands slightly, not in surrender but in patience. "I didn't come to harm anyone," he said. "I came because you wouldn't listen otherwise." She felt a sharp ache in her chest. "Listen? To what?" "You disappeared," she said, taking one shaky step toward him. "Everyone said you were gone, lost, dead, and I believed it." He gave a small, sad smile. "That was the plan." Her heart twisted. "Why?" "Because staying alive meant staying hidden," he said. "And staying hidden meant staying away from you." Her breath caught. She felt the officer beside her stiffen, sensing the emotional weight settling in the air. "But now," the man continued, "the person who tried to erase us, they're back." A cold chill climbed her spine. "Erase us." The words hit harder than the engine explosion earlier. "What do you mean?" she asked. "Who's back?" He looked at her with an expression she remembered from the old days, an expression he wore only when the truth was too heavy to carry. "You remember the last mission we flew together?" he said quietly. Her throat tightened instantly. The mission she never talked about. The mission that broke her. The mission that made her quit the program and disappear into civilian skies. "That mission wasn't an accident," he said. "It wasn't fate. And it wasn't bad luck." Her voice trembled. "Don't say it." "It was sabotage," he said softly. "Someone inside our own program wanted us out of the picture. You, me, our entire team." She felt the ground shift beneath her. No, it couldn't be true. But deep inside, she knew it was. "Why?" she asked. "They wanted to shut down the program and erase every pilot who knew the truth," he said. "But you survived that day. I survived too. But I let them think I didn't. We were the loose ends," she realized, her voice shaking. "Yes," he said. "And now that you used your call sign again, they know you're alive." The officer beside her finally spoke. "Who is they? Who are we dealing with?" The man looked at him calmly. "You won't find them in any record. They erased their own names long before they erased ours." A harsh silence filled the hangar. The first officer lowered his weapon slightly, not in trust but in realization. This wasn't a simple military emergency. This was something bigger, something buried, something dangerous. She stared at the man. "Why drag me back into this?" she asked. "I moved on. I found a normal life. I left all of this behind." His eyes softened. "That's exactly why I came," he said. "Because you won't survive what's coming if you face it as a cargo pilot." He stepped closer, slowly, giving the officers time to react. "You need to become Falcon 7 again," he said. "Not forever. Not for the program. For you. Because they won't stop until you're gone." Her breath broke. Her call sign. Her old jet humming behind her. The coded message written on the canopy. You left without finishing the story. And now the unfinished chapter stood right in front of her. She closed her eyes for a moment. She could hear the F-22s circling outside the hangar. She could still smell the burnt metal from her damaged cargo plane. She could feel the past and future crashing together, demanding a choice. When she opened her eyes again, they were steady. "What do you need from me?" she asked. The man let out a slow breath, as if her answer was the only thing keeping him standing. "First," he said softly, "you need to get back in your jet." She glanced back at the aircraft that wasn't supposed to exist. Her jet, her old wings, the machine that carried her through the hardest missions of her life. "I can't fly that anymore," she whispered. "You can," he said, "because you didn't forget. You buried it. There's a difference." The officers exchanged uneasy looks. The man turned to them. "I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to trust her." The lead officer sighed and stepped back slightly. "We'll give you space. But if anything goes wrong, we intervene." "Fair," the man said. She walked toward the jet slowly, each step feeling like a step into a life she thought she had escaped. She climbed the ladder, placed her hand on the edge of the canopy, took a long, deep breath. Inside the cockpit, the faint glow of lights reflected her face. The screen that once wrote "You remember now" flickered again, and changed to "Welcome back, Falcon 7. Her heart clenched. Behind her, she heard the man speak one last time. "This time," he said quietly, "we finish the story together." She lowered herself into the seat, the familiar weight of the cockpit settling around her like an old memory returning to life. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like a cargo pilot. She felt like someone who had survived the sky, someone who could fight again if she needed to, someone who wasn't afraid anymore. Falcon 7 had returned.